So I wanted to do this meeting tonight because I actually have had quite a number of people who have come to me and are like, I kind of have an idea of, life coaching, but I don't fully know what that's like. I kind of feel like I need a little, but don't really know fully about it. And then also with the fact that I also am a career coach along with it, and that's been my primary coaching for the past 20 plus years. People, really kind of ask, well, why is it that you kind of promote both? Because you do have other areas in which you're certified in, but those are the main two areas that I like to focus on. And for those of you who don't know anything about me, I'll just share quickly that I entered into career coaching field, like I said, a little over 20 years ago, and it was primarily in outplacement. And outplacement is when you hear about all these companies laying off, their individuals. But what the companies will do many times, not all the time, but many times they will buy a program with an outplacement firm who can help those individuals to develop their resume, interviewing, branding, negotiating, networking skills, and develop an actual job search plan, have a coach or consultant who is working with them to talk those things through, coach them through many of the changes that are coming, many of the offers that they get, and help them just kind of figure out where they want to go next. And so that's primarily what I did. And in that, I worked with a lot of people who, of course, are coming into this many times not expecting it. In some cases, expecting it, but still just couldn't accept it or wasn't ready. But regardless of all that, one of the things that I saw often in as I would coach people and talk to people is that, of course, we're talking about what they want to do next. But a lot of times we would end up in these conversations about what has been happening in their lives, the patterns that they notice that keep happening to them, the challenges that they have had on their jobs, things that they're like, I don't want to be in that kind of environment again, but I don't know what to ask. I don't know, what I'm doing because I thought that, I did ask the right questions. Or I get to the job and everything is going great, but then suddenly things kind of just turn, and I keep noticing this pattern of the way people operate towards me. And then I end up responding in a certain way. And when I do that, it turns into another thing on my job. And now a job that I thought was so great is not great, so great anymore. And so there's just a lot of challenges. And so I'm sure most of you can understand why life coaching then will be important as you are preparing for career coaching as well. And when you go to get work with a career coach, most of the time you're going to get a little bit of that aspect of life coaching. But the truth is, some of us do need to actually take the time to back up a little bit and get a little more deeply into the life side of what's going on with us so that we can begin to turn around some of the circumstances that we have been seeing happening in our lives, especially that they tend to happen over and over and over again. And we can't figure out why we always find ourselves in these situations. So the life coaching aspect really helps you not only be able to excavate some of the things that you have been doing, some of your patterns, some of the experiences that you had, but also it will, of course, help you to take the time to actually go through and do some things that we always say we want to do, or we only do when we find ourselves in some type of program or something, where we actually take time to figure out, what do I value in life? What is it that I used to love or I used to really cherish that maybe has changed for me? What is it that I find for me is really my strength that I bring to the table? One of the things that I find with people a lot when I'm working with them, particularly in career coaching, is, we're working on that resume and I'll ask them about accomplishments so we can build up that resume. And they're like, I don't necessarily have any accomplishments. And it's like, well, anybody who's worked on a job, you have accomplishments. You may not be giving yourself credit for them, but you absolutely have them. And so as I go through the process, I began asking questions and asking for their stories from their job, the stories begin to reveal the things about that individual that make them stand out from their competition, the things that they did that nobody else had the capability to do, the things that they did that sure anybody could have done, but the problem was no one was doing it, or nobody was doing it with the care and concern that you did it with. And because of that, it led to this and that and the other happening. So having this coaching is really important because it allows you to really understand your story, where you come from, and where you want to go to next, and be prepared before you start jumping into those steps and find yourself still making decisions that you thought were good decisions, but at the end of the day, they still don't align with your actual desires and your actual life plan. Because everyone, I feel everyone, if we're born here into this earth, then there is a way that we were created to be. There's a purpose, a function in which we operate in, and somebody, somewhere, some company, some team needs exactly what you bring to the table. So we need to kind of go through and excavate those things and bring them to the surface. So those stories are important. And so in thinking about that, I want to talk a little bit about the aspect of story. So society itself is driven by narrative and story. We all know this. We talk about, hey, how's your day? And we tell a story about what happened in our day. Hey, what are you thinking about getting? Well, I'm thinking about buying because, and it's a story behind it. Story is very important. And so stories has always been a primal form of communication. We know that before they even started sketching drawings on the caves, they had to figure out a way to communicate with one another. And in that even came back with telling the story of, well, why did you bring back only half of the saber-toothed tiger today? We needed the whole thing for this family. Well, what had happened was, so, there's always a story behind everything. So it is a primal form. And then having those stories also gives us a sense of connecting to our larger self, the greater picture about ourselves, and then universal truths that seem to be found amongst all of us. Stories tend to take us there. So let's take a look at these bullet points. It says here, the story we tell about our life becomes the story of our life. The narrative we tell our team, our business, our brands, our family becomes the story others eventually talk about. Our internalized narrative, triggered by words, images, and memory, is a phenomenon known as the self-fulfilling prophecy. And I think we all know about the self-fulfilling prophecy, and we probably even experienced it in one way or another. One way in which we always tend to see it happen is, we tend to think about certain things and we say, oh, that never happens for me, or oh, that always happens to me, and it tends to be in a negative kind of way. And we keep saying it and we keep saying it. And then when the thing happens to us, what's the first thing we say? See, I told you that always happens to me, or I told you that never happens for me. We say that, but what we're doing is we're creating a bit of that self-fulfilling prophecy. So the words are coming out of our mouth, and we know this from all the ancient, religious texts, things about the power of our words. So this story is very important, what we're telling ourselves. Now, looking at that second bullet point I have here, some of that story could be empowering and inspiring and even energizing you to be more, do more, and learn more. But yet there are parts of that story that could also be disempowering, demotivating, and downright draining you of your capacity to flourish.